fund needs to be balanced by the dedicated funding sources, meaning the revenue sources coming into the capital projects fund need to be spent on the projects for that funding source, for what it's dedicated to. So for example, each one of these, the economic development, capital projects, and housing must be funded by that 8.3% countywide set aside. Jail and court facilities must be funded by the 3% countywide set aside. The county projects funded by the county's distribution of the penny. And as you all know, the cities get their own distribution of the penny. And as Drew showed earlier, what the distribution is. Coastal management projects must be funded by the tourist development tax, and the ATMS projects by the local option fuel tax. So what this slide is showing, or what I'm trying to show here, is that each one of those programs is balanced throughout the years, except for the county penny projects. And that's where we have some work to do. We are balanced for fiscal year 22. As mentioned earlier, that's part of the proposed budget and must be balanced, and so we are balanced there. And in a few slides, I'm going to go over some strategies to align the entire plan with our projected revenues.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
So I'm sorry to bring up this sore subject, but this is a budget workshop, and we are talking about capital projects and our penny money. And I guess, and I know a lot of the answer is going to be predicated on, well, that's not the way we've done things in the past. But I would like to know, and maybe FAC is a good place to do this little exercise, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend FAC this year. And I'd like to know if we're the only county that doesn't have transportation, the cost of transportation and transportation projects embedded in our general fund and penny money somewhere.
You about transit itself or road?
Transportation is in our
Yeah,
cost.
transportation's in.
Transit.
Transit.
Oh, transit? Well, we can certainly find that out. I'm sure you're going to find a wide variety of situations. So it depends on, you can go to general governments where they do support that through the general fund. I'm sure, and I can point out a number where they don't. So I'm sure you're going to find that across the board. But we have transportation. Part of the penny is for improving our roads, improving our intersections, and those types of activities. That's included within the penny.
Right, but I'm more concerned about our lack of dedicated funding for that, just because I know that the new infrastructure packages that are being worked on at the federal level for sure, and I don't know about the state so much, but they do require, well, the state does as well, requires a match from local government. And I don't know that we're really prepared for that. I know we have ongoing conversations that are upcoming, but this is a huge, big subject matter, and I find it interesting that we don't spend a lot of time in our budget workshops talking about it.
Okay. We certainly can. I don't think it's intended that way. What we're really trying to show you on this slide is that for the request that we have for our penny, that we're going to have to prioritize projects. That's really what this slide says. And that's not even necessarily accounting for what I'm really concerned about, which is the increased cost of construction. From the time that we began this in 2017 to today, as those cost estimates come in, we're going to be continually refining this. Hopefully, by the time a year from now, those will be down.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Hopefully,
I said hopefully. But we're going to have to play with that. That's a piece of this that we can't control. But we always said, and Jackie's got some more slides that say that. But what we're really trying to put out with this slide, and we certainly can have the broader question about larger transportation issues, and we can do that whenever you like. This one's very specific to the penny. Now, in the past pennies, where you've had major capital constructions, and we have a federal project, we've shuffled things around. We've taken money out of the penny to use as match monies for larger transportation projects. You have done that in the past, and so as we see what happens, within Congress, we would have the ability to do that, albeit at a trade-off with something else that we wouldn't do. So.
Well, I think I know I'm harping on about it, but I do think it's almost any more a public health and safety issue, especially given the presentation that we saw yesterday at the Regional Planning Council with regard to the projections for this year's storms for our area. So I'm worried about that, and I think to not have the discussion is not very wise.
Commissioner Gerard.
I just wanted to point out that there's on attachment 3, countywide penny budget. On the first page, it has details about all the transportation projects. And we're spending $70 to $80 million a year on transportation. Well, we know it's not enough, but it's not like we're not spending money on transportation.
And I think going back to and I think it was in 2017, when we went out to talk to the public about this process, we had really great feedback. I mean, obviously very supportive of the program, but very good feedback about what those interests were. How would we spend that money? And I think that's what we have to always, and I'm sure you all do. I'm not, when you go through this, you check back to make sure that it's kind of in line with the promises that we made. We anticipate these issues.
Yep.
These are how we're going to do it. This is when we're going to do it. Well, what do you think? And then we got some feedback, and we adjusted the program a little bit. But it's based on that kind of work that we did up front to get this passed by our residents.
That's correct, and we're kind of taking away Jackie's slides, but
I'm sorry.
but I'm as guilty as everybody on that. But it's important. We do look at what we promised. Okay, and we're trying to deliver on that. At the same time, you're trying to balance, and that's the reason and the importance of the portfolio approach of looking at our infrastructure, things that the public wouldn't see, and they would say, yeah, you don't want to let a road deteriorate to the point where you have to spend more money than resurfacing and things like that. All those hundreds and thousands of decisions that our staff make, it's on balance, and so we try to look at both and certainly keep in mind delivering on the promise. But that's the reason it has to be an iterative process year after year. Taking, for instance, we're doing the study on East Lake Road. Well, we don't know at this point whether that's going to be improving intersections or is that going to be widening the road. That's going to be a lot of public feedback in determining that. So it's hard to put in a cost when you don't know what the project's going to be. And so some of these things do take time, and that's kind of where they're at the early into this 10-year cycle, and they're funding up those studies that'll be able to bring the alignment in the later years.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I mean, we looked at what those needs would be. The public liked those needs. It doesn't mean we're going to hit every single one of them,
Right.
because as you mentioned, in the last year, really, in the last 6 months, the price of construction has gone through the roof, and on various parts. Now, hopefully, as you said, that'll come down a little bit, but that could just be a cyclical thing too. We could be seeing trends on those cost increases. But anyway, Jackie, go ahead.
We'll
Okay,
turn our
actually,
mics off.
if you give me another 2 slides, I'm going to
Yeah,
go over
yeah.
all of that, because really that is the core piece of it, is doing the projects we said we would do. And so that's going to be part of our balancing act, and it is a balancing act across all the functions. So even though transportation is our biggest function that we spend money on, we still need to address drainage, flood control. So it really is a balancing act, and that's what our portfolio management process helps us do, and to coordinate that across all the departments. So I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, and this penny, I mean, it's really been very well received from our residents. And I think when we first started talking about this, there's a slide somewhere, and I've not this year that I've seen, but when you take that penny away, for instance, what the comparable property tax millage would be needed to offset a capital program, and would be funded completely by property taxpayers as opposed to sharing it with our visitors. Mm-hmm. This makes great sense. So keeping in mind what we tell our residents we're going to do, and we do it, I think is really, really important. So anyway, enough of that, but thank you for that slide and a couple slides ahead of time.
This slide is just about our penny revenue projections, and as you know, penny is a sales tax, so it's sensitive to local and national economic conditions, and of course the pandemic. So what I was showing here is our projected revenue back in July of 2017 during the education campaign, and then last summer with our COVID impact assumptions, and then where we're at this year, what we're projecting. So you can see we're still projecting, and this is over the 10-year period, about a 4% decrease, and again, that's compared to the July 2017 when we did the education campaign. So still a little bit of a reduction, but I want to point out that we're already seeing a bit of a rebound. Our most recent collections, which would have been for March and then distributed in the month of May, it was 42% higher than last March for the month, just for the month. Prior to that, this year to date, we were seeing about a 2% decrease from last year, and now, just with that month, we are up 4.4% year to date over last year. So that's the good news. Also, we looked back to 2019, since 2019 was our good year. We're averaging about a 5% increase over fiscal year 19. So again, that's where I'm seeing that rebound again, because we had pretty conservative projections, if you remember, over the 10-year period from the education campaign. So again, that's the good news. We'll continue to update those projections as we get another month in. So for the proposed budget, and then even for the adopted budget, hopefully we can see that trend continue.